Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today. We're going to be spending a little time focusing on Baroque music, specifically the music of Johann Sebastian Bach, and I decided to work on one piece because the main purpose for this investigation is to kind of look into what is appropriate style for this music, and the B Minor Mass has a tremendous amount of music in it. I'm sure we'll just touch briefly on a lot of sections of the piece. And I want to play a few things for you and then just speak on the things to listen for. Not only when you're listening to my examples, such as they are, but when you're listening to performances, when you're listening to recordings of this, because there are many different aspects that need to be taken into consideration. The first main one is, this, as most of you know, is a piccolo trumpet, which means little trumpet. It hasn't been around for that long. Most of the brass instruments started to become more refined in the 1850s and beyond. And the piccolo trumpet was kind of the last to come into its own. You'll hear two kinds of performances of this piece. One is original instruments, both the strings, the winds, and the brass. The percussion as well, trying to go back to that sound, which is very, very special. And then you'll hear modern instrument performances, which are probably more common. So in the modern instrument performance, we can't try and be something that we're not. And I don't want to do a lecture on the natural trumpet. That's a completely different subject. But I am going to point out what are the differences and what are the problems playing on a modern instrument, what's easier to do on a modern instrument, what you tend to hear sometimes that's not exactly appropriate for this style. So I'm going to survey very quickly through the B Minor Mass, and I want to touch quite a few spots. I'm going to start with number 4, the Gloria, and I'll just play a little bit of it for you, see how far I get here. A little aside, I like the piccolo trumpet, but I haven't played it for a while because I normally play it in church for high holiday performances, and Easter got canceled this year. So the last time I played piccolo trumpet was Christmas, and it's now, we're getting toward Christmas again. It's now the end of October going into November. So I hope we have Christmas services this year, but who knows? We're in the time of COVID. If not Christmas, then maybe Easter. Okay, I'll get started with, as I said, the Gloria from the B Minor Mass, which is the first time the trumpets play. Okay, let me get some water out of the horn. Okay. So one of the first problems that you'll run into when they come is trills. Trills are almost always lip trills, because what other kind can you do on a natural trumpet? But on the modern trumpet, you're generally using the valves. Now, the trills are much more insistent. They're much more well-defined. They're not as soft and fluid as the trills. And so what you need to do is don't make a big deal of the trills. Try and kind of get them to blend in. Copy the woodwind trills if you can. That's probably the best source of material to emulate, would be in the woodwinds. That's what you want to keep your ear on. So right from the beginning, you notice a kind of what I call a kind of a tympani effect. Instead of playing where I'm just kind of blowing straight through, everything has a bounce. And you'll notice that it's very rhythmic. Now, it's a shame to take this music out of the context of the orchestra. With the chorus and the orchestra, that's the complete picture, and the music is absolutely glorious. So you need to have that in our ears when we're playing this, because we're either serving one of several functions. So you could be a soloist. Sometimes the material you're playing is the main thing that people are listening to, and that's what you need to be. You need to be playing like a soloist. So you're, in essence, you're leading the orchestra and you're engaging the audience. Other times you're playing an accompaniment part. It's just rhythmic reinforcement, tone, color that you're blending in, either to the chorus or especially the winds in the orchestra. You need to listen for that kind of stuff, because that, once you know what your job is, it makes it much easier to do it. If you're not sure of your job, and then you're just going to blast away like a trumpet meathead. And there are plenty of us out there, so I hope that you can work on the tastefulness, and that's what you want to bring to this. And that in an orchestral audition, that's what they're going to want to hear, is do you understand the taste of this music? Now I'm going to move on to another section in the Gloria, and this is a particularly interesting one. This has a trill in it. I'm not going to play the trill this time. And the reason is trills are often left out if they become a musical distraction. So it's not a rule that you have to play a trill because one is written. It's a form of, it's kind of an invitation to add that little bit of texture and that little bit of interest in the quality of the sound. But if it becomes a big deal and the ear of the listener just goes to the trill, especially if it's not a particularly good trill, that we don't want that distraction. So I'm going to start, the tempo changes in the middle of the Gloria. I'm going to start, we got a double bar, tempo changes, and 36 bars rest or so, and then the trumpets come in again. And now we're accompanying when we play. And then we only somewhat come out of the texture of the orchestra, and then we become kind of the solo, the only thing that's really happening that's important, all in this one little section. So I'll just play through it briefly to give you context. So in the violins, your rhythm is 1, do, do, da, dee, da, dee, da, 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 and then the trumpets enter in on the third beat. Now we have about 10 bars rest, and this next figure, and this is where it gets interesting. 3, 4. Now at the end there, the trumpets are the most prominent part for those last couple of bars. The rest of the texture kind of disappears, and there you are. So when you play this music, you're going to notice, if you're prepared, you've listened and you kind of know what your job is, as I said, in a particular point. So that becomes a solo, but not a loud solo. It's very gentle because it's the end of a section. And I want you to notice, if you haven't already, how light the articulation is. It's very easy to tongue more explosively on the piccolo trumpet because it's a smaller instrument, it's very quick, it's very responsive, and the main thing is we're used to tonguing the way we tongue on the bigger horns, and that just doesn't work. So it's mostly breath support, carrying the tone, sustaining. There's a lot of sustaining that goes on, and then very, very light articulation. And this is something that has to be practiced. Just keep your ear on what you're aiming for. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead. There's so much great music, and I hate to skip any of it, but I'll skip ahead to number 12, which is another which is another chorus, meaning that the chorus is singing. And in this one, I picked some of these sections because they have the trumpet section, the three trumpets playing together. There are a lot of places where the first two trumpets are playing a duet, and then the third trumpet is going with the tympani, for example, or is just kind of an offsetting part, kind of an obligato part. And here we're playing all together. So let me toot a little bit of this, number 12. That's not very good. Let me try that again. And I'm going to try and get more of a bounce in it. You see how there's always a sense of direction? So the feeling of time, Bach was really a jazzer when it comes right down to it. This music has so much like visceral energy in it, and a lot of it is rhythmic energy. So that's what you want to be emulating as you play through this. Now I'm going to go ahead, there's like 12 bars rest there, and this is a typical part. You're kind of modulating. So you see how much, I hope some of this is coming across, how much like verve and energy there is in this. I'm going to skip ahead to, I'm going to try and play the Credo, because that's one that is a solo. And that's one that is on a lot of auditions. And I think you'll see why it's on a lot of auditions. Hopefully I'll pass muster today, but let's give it a shot. Okay. And again, that's a little bit easier to play in the orchestra. When you play it, when you see it on an audition list, you have to bring the orchestra with you. Bring the orchestra in your mind, in your ear. Let the orchestra support you. Because this is just like a little separate voice, kind of like an extra soprano obligato part with the chorus. And it's just so cool how this works. Yeah, it's a little challenging to play, especially in the middle of an audition after you've been playing, Bruckner and switching over to maybe Ravel and playing rotary trumpet and then playing B flat on Carmen, and then you pick up the piccolo trumpet and play on the Credo from the B Minor Mass. That's what you need to train for. So when you have this style down, it just makes the job a whole lot easier. And that's why I wanted to focus on this. I'm going to skip ahead to number 6, another chorus, and see if I can. I always play this too fast, but this is another one where just a short section, and I'm going to have you play this together in the class. By the way, for those of you who may be watching this at a later time, I'm making this for the trumpet class at NEC, New England Conservatory, because we're focusing on this literature, and so you also get to benefit from it. Here we go, chorus number 6. That's too fast. And I'm not too much off the tempo. I'm just this is one of the most important things. There's a certain feel to it. It's just like, you know, if you've ever worked with, if any of you have ever had the opportunity to work with, you know, world-class, top-level pop musicians, which I have had the opportunity to do that, there's one thing that they're into, and that's the tempo feel. There's a certain almost physical thing that happens, and it's exactly the same with Bach. Totally different genre, but it's the same thing. So I'm kind of going da 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 da, no, and it's boom 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 da da da. So it's that feeling of bounce and flow. That's really what you're trying to get here, and I hope some of this comes across. Give me another chance. You know, let me see if I can do this for you. That was a little better. So one thing you'll notice in this style is, again, it's not, or, so if you think of a string player playing, there are a lot of different ways to apply the bow. And one way is to play off the string. So that's one sound. On the string, D, D, D. And in both cases, you get a different kind of resonance. And here what we want is rhythmic energy, and that comes from the rest. Now those are articulated more. See, even though I'm tapering the notes, I'm not going da, dee, I'm going da, dee, da, like this. They end at exactly on the beat. They end with energy. You can play them shorter, you can play them a little longer, you can play a little bit different shape. Lots up for grabs. When you practice this stuff, you want to really become aware of your options. Exercise all the things that you can. Listen to the different recordings, and then you'll be ready for whatever the conductor who you're playing for wants you to do, and able to change that kind of in the moment. Okay, so many great movements. Okay, here's another great one for the three trumpets playing together. And so this is, yeah, this is number 9, chorus. And here we have the reason why you have a 4-valve piccolo trumpet. So, you know, when I'm sustaining that note, the other trumpets have the rhythmic energy. Da-da-da, da-da-da, and I'm just floating. So one way I like to think about this is they're a little bit like angel voices. And I think that's kind of what Bach had in mind. It's a very, very special sound. And so when you get that light, not driven, not forced, you know, you have to change the quality of your voice. That's what makes this stuff work. So that gives you a little taste of that. Oh yeah, this is a challenge, and this is something you run into a lot. So when you're training for these, to play these pieces, you have to get comfortable simply sustaining the tone without your body becoming more and more tight. Your embouchure, your breathing system, the tongue. You need to figure out a way, you need to figure out the skill, and then by working on it, develop the conditioning in order to be able to lightly play in this register. So this is the Sanctus. And yeah, I'm just going to play a little bit of it, and you'll immediately see what you're dealing with. I don't know how much I'm going to play. Well, let's see how far I get. You see how slow this is. 2, 3. And that goes on. And there's some very, very exposed parts. It's not all blended in. In the Baroque music, in the Baroque period, sometimes there's not a lot of dynamic stuff that's written in. Most of it's not written in. Most of the inflections or the accents or styles of articulation, they're not written in. They're assumed that you know what they are. So that's why we're doing this class. In this next, I'm going to just play a little bit more of this. This is an example. You get 13 bars of rest, and then you come in. You see, that's the kind of stuff you have to do. And that's what you need to practice in order to get it. A couple bars later. So you're adding some feeling of movement. And this is so easy when you have the whole orchestra there. You actually get caught up in the spirit of the music and all that musical energy that's coming from all the other players, especially from the chorus. If you ever get a chance to do this, and hopefully some of you have already had the chance to do this, you'll understand exactly what I mean. I don't want to go long today, so maybe I'll just do, let's see what we got here. Yeah. Another section where the trumpets play together, at least briefly. This is chorus number 1. The Benedictus, Agnus Dei, and Dona Nobis Pacem. And it's got a lot of energy to it. So this comes in 1, 2, 3, 1. D is where the entrance is. Oop, page turn. So this brings up another point. You notice when, I hope you noticed when I just let it ride. Because there's usually something going on that's more important than going wah. And it's very easy to stick out on the piccolo trumpet. That's another way that the natural trumpets are easier. They're more blended. The sound is more soft around the edges. The piccolo is very focused and tends to have a hard sound, and at worst a squeaky sound, which is not particularly attractive. So you want to try and keep it as light as you can. Yeah, that gives you a little taste. Now at the end, let's see. Yeah, this is the last chorus for the trumpets is number 5. I know it skips around a little bit, kind of strange. I'll send you the music on this so you'll be able to see what I'm seeing and have a chance to practice it, and hopefully have a chance to play it together in the class if I can get into town to help you do that. Okay. Yeah, I love this spot. So I'm just going to start kind of, I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to play the end because this is about 41 bars in or so. The second trumpet and the third trumpet enter on the pickup. So it's in 4/2, and it's a very stately kind of tempo. And I'm just going to play the first part. 4. And sometimes these last chords of sections, especially the big choruses, that's where the trumpets can push forward a little bit more and really reinforce the sound of the orchestra with the brilliance and the shine that comes from the trumpet without sticking out. That's the key. So I hope some of this has been helpful to you. I don't want to take too much of your time today, but we'll talk about this more in class. And I hope you have a good time, make some progress with playing your piccolo trumpet. A short aside, I mentioned that I hadn't played the piccolo trumpet since Christmas, and that's not a good thing, because it can be very, very helpful to to the playing of the big horns. So we spent a lot of time on C trumpet, play B flat some as orchestral players, and so in the piccolo we just generally don't play. And a lot of accomplished orchestral players have discovered that when you pick up the piccolo trumpet, once a week or so, and you keep in touch with the balance that's necessary in the upper register, that really helps the rest of your trumpet playing. I realize some of you are not don't necessarily have a natural affinity for the instrument. Don't let that bother you. Learn how to play it better and better, and it will improve your playing of the bigger horns. So that's my recommendation, and I will see you later on down the road. Have fun, enjoy the process. Good luck, everybody. Bye-bye.